Hey everybody, and welcome back to Matchup Madness. This is Ogre, and I'm hosting with D today. D, thanks for joining me.
Oh, quite welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Um, so today we've got StormCloud playing into ZeusPegasus, and I'm super grateful to have D here with me because they're playing teams that I'm not super familiar with. On StormCloud's side, we've got Cammy, Chun-Li, and Remiliss, who is
Ooh.
someone I'm familiar with, thankfully. And then for ZeusPegasus, we've got Geoffrey, Guile, and Renea in the lineup.
All right, so we've got three Street Fighter characters, three Seventh Cross characters in total across both teams. This is interesting. Um, let's see. So I'm guessing that you're more familiar with the Seventh Cross characters and less with Street Fighter. Is that correct?
For the most part, it's actually only two of the Street Fighter characters. It's Cammy and Chun-Li that throw me for a loop. Guile, thanks to you, kind sir, I have spent quite a bit of deal of time playing.
Happy to help. Um, yeah, we have some interesting, very diverse characters here actually. So Cammy is an answer character. She's kind of an acrobat. She's sort of the Lucia of season three, if you will. She tends to move in and out of close and long range. She relies on being able to defuse enemy threats. She doesn't have a lot of high threat moves of her own, except for the notable Gyro Drive Smasher. So she's interesting. Her favorite ranges are 1 and 5, and not really anything in between. Maybe 4. 4 is fine too. Chun-Li is a dedicated footsies based zoner. Actually, she's a bit like Renea, at least early game Renea. She tends to be stepping away from her opponent all the time, trying to space out her moves. She will then try to get a bunch of gauge, usually like all at once, with stacking up boosts and then landing a big hit. Uh, and then she will exceed and turn into a variation on Lily, a season 1 character, in that she gets extra range on all of her attacks. Now, Imogene was accidentally dealt when they were trying to. Um, let's see.
Okay,
Sorry, I was.
perfect. I just wanted to make sure. For the guys watching on stream, we are also keeping an eye on what's going on over in TTS as they get set up. And there were characters shown that I was not ready for, so I wanted to just verify.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's what's happening. They're still sorting out using TTS. A lot of newer players and newer players to Tabletop Simulator in particular, even if they're not new to Exceed. So it takes a bit of practice to get the hang of the program. Anyway, Chun-Li's goal essentially is to exceed and then abuse her range superiority to just thwart the opponent either at the mid range or basically full board. Get in her face and punch her a lot is generally what you need to do.
Yeah, and is that a pretty standard counter to the heavy control archetype players or fighters? Excuse me. It's just sort of
Yes,
threaten them with aggression and get in close.
it is. The most dedicated control characters always have answers to this. Amina is a notable example. Amina has a card called Hollow Space, which dodges attacks at range 1 and gives her some movements to get out of melee. She also has the ability to throw stun immunity onto her attacks, which can give her guaranteed ways to trade up in melee. So she has those answers because she needs them, because in general, if you're aggressive and you get in her face, nothing else in her kit will do the job. Renea as well, I assume that's how you beat her. I don't really beat Renea when I play her. I'm very, very bad against Renea. So, in theory,
Everyone needs
I'm
a
told.
weakness, D.
Well, I have at least three, and we have two of them in play here, Chun-Li and Renea. Um, let's
So I
see.
took a couple of
Okay,
notes
let's
about the
set up.
statistics on these fighters that we're seeing so far in the tournament. There's some interesting numbers here. So on StormCloud's team, Chun-Li, Cammy, and Remiliss, I feel like, and I'd have to go and check all the numbers, but I think when it comes to picks across the entire tournament, right? This is a stat that Taxi has very kindly provided for us. Chun-Li has 6 RP as I have them listed, so roster picks, um, which I feel like is pretty average. I feel like 6 is sort of the most frequently represented number of roster picks across everybody. Cammy coming in at only 2 roster picks, and Remiliss actually coming in big at 11 roster picks. How do you feel about their representation in general? Remiliss makes sense, right? You just piloted her to a fairly well documented victory at Gen Con, and she, I think, is one of the more popular and at least well thought of from a strength perspective characters from season 2. What about the 2 roster pick representation for Cammy? Why do you think it's so low?
Well, let's see. There are 45 playable characters, right? We have about 90 players with 3 picks per player, so that's 270 picks. So it seems like average would be uh, it would be 6 then. Okay. So if that's how the math lays out, Cammy is way under average. This makes sense. So characters who are an answer archetype, who don't have strong threats of their own, but instead rely on being able to defuse enemy threats with tricky effects or movements or various other things. These are characters that are by nature harder to pilot because they require matchup knowledge. You need to know what your opponent's threats are in order to defuse them. So if you are an answer character, you simply have to have the knowledge of what you're fighting into. It is at least as important as knowing how to pilot your side of the matchup. You can't really master your side of the matchup unless you know your opponent's side as well. This means Cammy is just naturally one of the harder characters to play in the game overall. And in particular, in a tournament where you're fighting a wide variety of opponents with unknown playstyles, you really have to have that matchup knowledge.
That's super fair. Yeah, and she is difficult, right? She's someone that I haven't played much. I tried a couple of times, and she just kind of didn't click for me. Um, I think, as Jay points out, not seeing the table, I was giving them an opportunity to go ahead and get set up. So let's head on over to TTS. It looks like they've both selected and are ready to go now. So for the first game of this set, we're going to see Zeus with his Chun-Li and StormCloud with Renea. How do you feel about this matchup, D?
Oh, this is funny. They're both stoners. They have similar play patterns, at least in my experience, of trying to play very safe, trying to just play conservatively in the early game, and then swing that, in Chun-Li's case, gauge, in Renea's case, transformations, and then exceed. And when they exceed, they each become dominant in their own right. Chun-Li has tremendous range superiority, but Renea gains incredible action compression and overall value because she gains the ability to basically boost and take another action every turn. This is terrifying. So, like, they'll both become monsters. It's just a question of who gets set up faster.
Okay, so you're thinking this could be a race to the finish line.
Yes, that is my full expectation. Whoever exceeds first will have a sizable advantage, unless they're back to back.
Seems reasonable. I think we'll go ahead and turn the overlay off. Looks like they should be starting shortly. But Renea is in the wrong position. Hopefully they catch this.
I'll point it out if they don't catch it at actual start of game. I'll just point it. It's fine.
Storm can't see his cards on the mat.
I'm going to hop over and do some troubleshooting. If
Absolutely.
you don't mind holding on the fort. Fantastic.
So while we're waiting, we talked about the relative number of roster picks for StormCloud's team, with Cammy coming in pretty low at 2 and Remiliss coming in actually the highest of this pair of players at 11. For ZeusPegasus, we see Renea coming in with 8 roster picks, Guile again with only 2, and then Geoffrey coming in with 8. So slightly above average on 2 of his picks in terms of popularity. And for his third, another less frequently chosen representative, which if you're not familiar with Guile and what he does, I'm going to take just a moment to sort of, I guess, advertise for D's YouTube channel. You can find it by searching Tirankin on YouTube. He has a series that he did called Guile versus the World, and he basically just, on a whim, decided to test how Guile did into a large majority of matchups once we started talking more about the big hand Guile line of play. As Jay points out in chat, Guile cheats. And that's sort of the thought at the time was we wanted to really stress test that line of play and see how it fared into a variety of different opponents. And what that means is that if you're somebody that's interested in Guile and learning more about him, how he plays, what his matchups look like, there are a huge amount of videos that are out there as a resource for you to go and learn some more about that fighter in general and learn more about his matchups.
And watch more of the memes.
And watch more of the memes. Double sunglasses. Double
Yeah,
sunglasses.
all the way. All right, seems like they managed to get set up. Chun-Li won the coin toss, or lost the coin toss, I'm not sure. Either way, Chun-Li's going first, and Renee is going second. Chun-Li has a lot of options in the mulligan here. It's hard to be safe against Renea, um, due to how her opening gambits work. Um, hold on a second. Do I have them flipped?
I'm sorry, what do
Who's
you mean?
playing Renea?
So Renea should be Zeus. So they,
Oh, then Renea is going first.
yeah, they've got you thrown off by, well, no,
Wait, I can just hover the deck. Yes, Zeus is Renea. Yep,
they
Chun-Li is StormCloud. Okay, that's my bad.
they have
Uh,
juked us entirely on the way that they've set up the board.
the character facing meta, little known, high level play. All right. So it looks like Renee is up first. Can't tell if mulliganing or just choosing to strike after both players mull 0. Uh, Based on StormCloud checking that reference, it looks like this is a turn 1 strike. So that is either dive, flare, stray fire, or the hilariously cheeky call shot.
Did you happen to see if either player mulliganed any?
I believe it was no mull on either side.
Oh wow, okay, so either an extreme amount of confidence in their opening hands, or maybe a little bit of unfamiliarity with sort of game.
Mm-hmm. That could go either way. We have a lot of newer players, a lot of less experienced players entering the tourney, and I honestly don't know where these particular players sit on the experience threshold.
Okay, so we're gonna see a
Oh, hard raid. Sorry.
indeed. So
So
go ahead.
Spike only beats Flare, but it beats Flare.
That hurts.
Yep. Flare's gonna hit at speed 5, deal 3 damage, which does not stun the Spike, and then close to moving into Spike's range. So Chun-Li will trade up.
That's got to feel pretty good if you're Chun-Li, right?
I think it's hilarious, and yes, Chun-Li gets 1 gauge on starting down that road. This is not a transformation for Renea, so it's not a high value hit. So it's just unfortunate for her, honestly.
So some more statistics on these two fighters. Right now, Chun-Li, over the course of the tournament, is sitting on a 44% win rate over 9 games, while Renea is sitting on an 83% win rate over 6 games. So, just in general, D, what do
Mhm.
you attribute that to? Is it relative difficulty to pilot for Chun-Li?
I attribute that to the players who played Renea in those games performing better than the players who played Chun-Li in those games.
Well, fair
Um,
enough.
Win rate it comes down to player skill at the end of the day. You can study it a lot of different ways. You can attribute to a lot of different factors, but this is a very skill intensive game, and there are no unwinnable matchups in Exceed. There are good and bad matchups, but in general, the dominant player will win out.
We see a cross losing to an EX cross from Renea,
Hmm.
taking back a little bit of that momentum.
Yep, looks like Renea needs to prep, and Chun-Li then preps in turn. This is actually a much better range for Chun-Li than Renea because Called Shot is Renea's only option at this range, and it is not safe. It's interesting that we haven't seen the face down boosts. Oh, wait. That's a face down boost. Okay.
There
There
we
we
go.
go. And that's why, sideways, for people wondering why in the world do people seem to keep turning their boost sideways in these streams, it's so that the opponent knows if it's a boost or a strike in the case of characters like this, where it could be ambiguous.
Yep, and also it's something that's very helpful. It cleans up the board in front of you in a way that makes referencing let's face it, in this game you could have 3 transformations, 2 boosts per side with strikes going and having to worry about, character UAs and EX strikes and everything else. So the more cleanly you can represent information to your opponent, the easier you make their job when it comes to actually playing the game, right?
Sure, it also makes your life easier because you can evaluate the math on your side of the board much faster. All right, we have a boost on Lightning Legs. Big question here is will Chun-Li retreat with her character ability?
That boost repeating attack. Show it on screen for just a moment.
Mm-hmm. Lightning Legs is a fairly low value card. The main value of it is simply that it is a speed 6 option, which not every character gets to have a 1, 2, 3, 6 other than Cross. The boost on it allows her to return her attack basically and use it again. Um, that said, I believe she missed her end of turn draw.
I'm not sure where the coin falls on enforcing that game state. That seems it's mandatory, right? Like it's not optional. So
Uh,
what is
Wait.
happening?
She drew from the wrong set of cards. That was interesting. I'm not sure what those face down cards are. I think they were a Imaging reference that was created accidentally. Looks like they were. Should probably get those out of the way and then draw from the deck. Yep.
We
Okay.
we were just talking about clean board states, right?
Yep. Errors
So
that you won't see happen very often in real life: drawing the wrong character's card into your hands. Although with Renee around, it can happen because late in the game she has the ability to steal her opponent's cards.
and sometimes you don't
Notably,
find out about that until the next game day.
right. To be clear, she can't steal them into your hands, but you might take it into your hand by accident at the end of the game.
Chun-Li spinning a copy of Hosenka to move into.
Okay. Moving up to range 3, she must feel that she has better chances here. Probably concerned about those Renea boosts, buffing up a called shot, or giving her the option to move in. One of Renea's boosts. So Renea boosts face down when she plays continuous boosts, and then when she reveals them, when she sets her attack, she reveals them. So if she initiates a strike, she reveals them immediately and does what they say.
Okay,
That
we're
is
actually going
happening
to
right
see
now.
that. Yeah. So
All
we've
right,
got a fierce, and is that a jujitsu?
that is Jujitsu. So I was about to mention
3
Jujitsu
power.
because it lets her move one immediately when it's revealed. This is unusual because moving when you set your attack is completely unique. It makes you dishonest about your position in the fields. So Chun-Li thought she was at range 2, but really she's at
Well,
whatever range Renea wants to be.
range 3, right? Although it does look like Renee is going to choose to move into range 2. Note that the move on Jujitsu is not optional. You have to move one, so you're either moving forward or back, but you don't have the option to stand still.
Yep. Is this going to be the cross, the strafe fire? What'll it be? Maybe a lethal force. Chun-Li has responded from hands. Oh my goodness, that is a 9 power sweep. Ooh, Chun-Li tried to play something defensive, relatively safe, and that huge amount of power bonus is going to blow it out and stun it.
Yeah, you have to think that Renee anticipated that.
Seems that way. There are more than one ways to call and hard read a defensive move. This is one of the most punishing of them all, however. It
Yeah.
also maintains her positioning,
Would you
which is
have
important.
gone for the sweep there when the Renea's sweep was set and both power boosts were revealed?
As the Chun-Li player, I would not have played a sweep, but that is mainly because I value the boost on sweeps so highly. After Chun-Li exceeds, that boost is not only plus 2 speed, but also plus 0 to 1 range, and now retreat 1, which is incredible value. So I tend to give up on damage when I'm playing Chun-Li in return for those other benefits.
Super fair. I think
Looks like
that
Chun-Li crafts.
I would have. That probably would have been enough to scare me. I would have been looking for a dodge of any variety.
Mm, some kind of cross or dive. Yeah, looks like they've both prepped, building up those options. So these are fairly slow-paced characters. They will tend to try to keep a moderate to high hand size because, well, sorry, I should say it differently. They're set play characters. Their attacks are unreliable unless they're set up ahead of time. This is why they both tend to play a lot of boosts in order to make sure that their attacks are confirmed. Chun-Li is considering her play. I think she should probably be reinforcing her range advantage and trying to back up, but Renea hasn't seen any transformations yet, so we know that she's going to try to hit those attacks at some point. I believe we just saw a discard search from Chun-Li.
We have 3 in Renea's discard, by the way, and 5 in Chun-Li's. Still pretty early days.
Oh, we have a
Oh,
reading.
That is
Uh,
19 left in deck. That's a fairly confident read.
True, true. Renea has dropped both crosses, one sweep, one grasp. There's a decent handful of information down here. Oh, hold on. Please excuse me. I'm going to explain how reading works.
Yep. So while D is stepping over there and helping out with read education, I'd like to just point out anybody watching, if you have any questions, if you're a newer player, if you know any of these mechanics are giving you any kind of trouble following, or if you want anything else explained in more detail, ask in chat. We've got D in here with us. He is one of the foremost experts on the game. Please don't hesitate to throw any questions you might have in there, and we'll get them answered just as soon as we can. So we see a revealed hand from Zeus that includes Assault, Paranormal Investigation, Focus, Block, and Flare. Not sure what the reading call was there. Hopefully D will bring it back for us whenever he comes back into the commentator's booth.
Yeah, there was some confusion on the timing of the reveal on reading, which is a really crucial thing not to overlook. Am I still coming through?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, I was worried for a second there.
My apologies for the quiet. I am having a family text thread that I'm having to respond to. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, take care of that. Take care of that. So yeah, for those not familiar with reading, you name a normal attack, then you strike, and that means that you set your attack and perform all of your decisions right at that moment. That is before you resolve the rest of the boost. So it says the opponent must strike with a named normal attack or reveal a hand without it. But when you play reading, you don't know if they have it. You have to commit beforehand. Then, after you set your attack, they will either set the card you named or reveal the hand. That happens after you've set. So it's important that you not reveal your hand first. If you tip your hand early, you're just giving away free information for no reason. Looks like Lightning Legs is going to come in and hit Focus, dealing only 1 damage after armor. Focus was a good safe play here. I don't know what the reading was, but we do know that it whiffed.
Okay. D, we have a question from chat. The real Zac Efron asks, what's the best way to use Chun-Li's Ultra Parry?
That's quite a screen name. Best way to use Chun-Li's Ultra Parry. Well, it depends. Against an opponent with a very large hand size, and if you have a decent idea of what could be left in their hands, or if you know that they have valuable normals such as Focus and Sweep, you can boost it to get rid of their get rid of high value cards. If the opponent sees your hands, then you can spend those 2 force with no normals, so that you're getting normals that your opponent knows about out of your hands, potentially forcing them to also discard their own readings. That said, in general, I think the value of Hozenka is so high that there are few situations in which it is more valuable to play Ultra Parry.
Interesting. That's one of the things. So I have very little experience into Chun-Li, but that is something that I hear spoken about pretty frequently when she comes up in matchup discussions or anything else. Is that Ultra Parry? So lower value than I anticipated.
Yeah, I don't actually think of Ultra Parry as being very useful. I think it's fun. I like playing it. I don't usually think it's a good idea. That is because a well set up Chun-Li can hit with a 9 or 11 power stun immune Hozenka from across the entire board in the late game. All right, we have Neutralizer. That is not going to get much value into this block, but it will force the opponent to spend 1 force. Yeah, just 1 force to not get stunned.
Yep, which most of the time I feel like whenever you get an attack blocked, generally you're trading up, right? You're forcing them to discard some cards in order to prevent the damage, and you're getting a gauge out of it. And it depends on what resources you sunk into validating that attack. In this case, I actually feel like it might be a trade down. I don't know that.
Clarify what I just...
Go ahead.
I'm gonna go clarify what I just said.
Okay, fair enough. So, by my estimation, and I could be wrong here, so just evaluating this trade, right? The Renea player threw 2 gauge and essentially 2 force, because, it's an ultra involved, into a payout of 0 damage here, right? But she gets the gauge back. So, net loss of 1 gauge, 2 force. The player responding with block, however, is going to spend 1 force and take no damage, presumably. I think that's what we're maybe going to choose to take the 2. Either way, 0 to 1 force and is going to go up a gauge. Generally speaking, and it depends on the character, but that gauge is going to carry a little bit more value than force. Not a whole lot more for everyone, but for most people, just a little bit of a trade up. In Chun-Li's case, that gauge is super important to her, so that felt like a very good round for Chun-Li. We see Renea spending a force to take a step back.
Was that a cross? Oh, that was from Gage. That makes a lot more sense. So I thought she had already spent 2 crosses. Yeah, sorry for stepping away. Chun-Li players just needed some clarification on the timing of the effect on block. So when block is hit, it gives you the chance to spend force to gain extra armor. Notably, this happens even if no matter what your opponent's attack says. Like you still get to do the thing where you spin for extra armor. Even if your opponent has ignore armor, you can spin for extra armor. It just wouldn't be a very good idea. That is because the effect on block is a passive effect. It just says when you're hit after hit effects. So whenever that happens, you get to do the thing.
Yep. And that's actually, is it the only time that's printed? I can't remember the exact wording on Snow Slash, but it's a fairly rare timing window for any effect in this game, right?
Right. There are exactly 2 cards that have that text. One is that exact text. Now there is another character who has a when you're hit, which does occur after hit effects as well, which allows him to
seeing an EX assault into a head stomp.
And that head stomp was pretty safe too. With 1 armor 3 guard at speed 5, it's pretty hard to beat it, but EX assault will beat it clean by dealing 4 damage after armor. All right, Zeus taking the advantage here pretty literally.
Yeah, Renea has leveraged a few key moments in this match to sort of maintain control throughout it. It hasn't felt like she's lost control on the flow of the game in quite a while now.
Yep, we have an unusually aggressive Renea, but she's putting it to good use. We have some very potent defensive EX attacks coming out at just the right times. I wonder if this is the anticipation.
Yes, absolutely. Real Zac Efron asks, wait, just to clarify, you can still spend armor with the block card, even if the opponent has ignore armor. Absolutely, you could. And there might be some sort of very niche situations where maybe you use it as an opportunity to get, I guess, normals out of your hand if you're expecting, if they're taking advantage and they have a reading or something like that. But for the most part, it's almost always more valuable not to spend for that armor and instead get rid of those cards in another way.
Yeah, because no matter how much armor you decide to gain, it will still be ignored. So it doesn't do you any good.
We saw paranormal investigation stunning out a head stomp there, I believe.
Yep.
Was that head stomp wild swung?
Yeah, I believe so. Looking for a normal or 2 to return from the discard pile to the hands.
Chooses not to...
And cross!
Chooses not to transform mimetism.
Huh. Fair enough.
Nope.
No, never
Disregard.
Mind.
We have... Oh, I am not going to do this well. Miyu Kitsune? Hopefully that was close. I apologize if it wasn't.
Look at it. It's Meow.
Oh, no.
That's got to be Meow, right?
I'm not going to say Meow in case D is wrong and it offends you, but Mew, from you, Kitsune, perfect. If you have any questions or if you have anything that you'd like to ask while we've got D on the stream, please feel free. You have a wealth of knowledge at your fingertips. Just tap into it.
Mm-hmm.
So this was Chun-Li's priority, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Spinning bird kick.
Okay. So this is calling out a single cross, I believe, but it will not be successful because advancing 3 means she moves to range 3, and spinning bird kick's printed range is only 1 to 2.
That feels rough. It's Miyu. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Gotcha. All right.
That feels pretty bad.
Yep. So Renee is
Um,
going to get a free gauge and get to take the turn.
in a competitive environment, we've discussed it in a couple of previous casts. This might be the time that I would offer up the concession, just to conserve a
Hmm.
little bit of that mental energy.
Hmm.
Climbing back, climbing back against a 20 health point disparity when you're somebody that doesn't by their nature hit super hard is terrifying to me. Now, if it was polar, right, I would absolutely take this bet. I would try for it.
Well, I would say if it was polar and there was some spikes on the board, this is a clean board, void of ice spikes. I'd feel pretty safe if I was fighting against Polar Knight.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm. All right, so if that was Chun-Li's initiative, it's now Renea's turn. Renea checking that discard pile, probably considering the Exceed action to see what boosts she will steal if she does take it.
There is a spike engaged. Oh, Jay. Oh, Jay.
Oh, not spike. It figures.
That is not half as good as an ice spike. Thank you, sir. I have a plan, by the way, D.
Oh,
I don't know who I'm gonna spring this on, but
is it correct?
you know I like to make fancy
Correct.
tabletop simulator environments, right?
Sure, yeah.
I am very tempted to bring some of the special effects objects I have over, and the next time I play Polar into somebody, just turn on the snow like in the middle
Oh,
of the
man.
match and just
Oh, man.
just for the reaction.
That would be so funny.
Like right when
All
I
right.
exceed's probably the right time for that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So that
That's a face time boost.
is
Face time boost.
okay. Is it?
Yeah. Yes, she drew afterwards. So that was very clearly a face down boost, draw for end of turn.
Okay.
And then the opponent preps.
Just being semi inconsistent with the orientation of them.
Yeah. Well, they're in a voice chat, so as long as you're able to communicate with your opponent to make it clear what you're doing, it's not a big deal. Um, it's kind of like with your gauge and your deck and your discard. As long as everyone knows what everything is, it doesn't really matter how you lay it out. The playmat's just a suggestion.
Okay,
All right, that's a
so
+2 speed or +2 power boost. Excuse me.
fierce. What do you like at range 3 here?
I mean, just about everything threatens lethal. I think I like Assault the best, but it's down. Both copies are visible. So Flare is pretty safe. It's on curve, and it does 5 damage. So yeah, that's my favorite option.
Yep, so we got one copy of that left, we know for sure. Hmm.
Oh, there's a much more obvious play. It's Stray Fire. Yeah, that's speed 6, 4 power.
That yeah, fair enough.
Okay, doesn't do lethal because of the 2 armor here, however.
Chun-Li correctly anticipating they're going to go for a fast, light hitting option. Oh,
Oops. There we go. All right, Stray Fire's after retreats, and that will give Renea a very solid transformation, further discounting her exceed cost and putting Chun-Li that much closer to death. Chun-Li needs to draw for her after effects, and Renea is deciding whether or not she wants to keep her boost in play. So that's a decision that she needs to make first. And then Chun-Li will draw.
Chun-Li doesn't have anticipation. She can't do that. I might not understand the reference that Jay is making. Faultless focus. Stun immunity. Now strike. Hit. Add this card to your gauge.
Anticipation.
He said Chun-Li. Did he mean Renea?
Well, Renea actually does have anticipation. Anticipation is the other ultra. It's the one that has a dodge at range 1. Okay. So Renee has finally paid the force. I'm not sure if Chun-Li drew for that after effect.
I did not catch either. I'm not even sure she's spent to pay for the boost yet.
That's what just happened. Those 2 force were to sustain the grasp. Oh, sorry, you're talking about for
I'm talking about Chun-Li. Right? Yeah, hasn't been paid for yet. There we
Okay,
go.
there's the cost. Okay.
So we see a flipping axe kick being used to pay for faultless focus.
Yep. So that is stun immunity now strike. Hit out the straight gauge.
That's interesting. I don't know. I guess you're just
Wait, what?
doing it for the gauge.
Oh, that was the after draw for the focus. They were belated.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Kind of a
Strike
mess
it.
that last turn.
Everything happened out of order, but it did all happen. All right, with only 3 gauge, what are the options here? Well, if Renea has the other Strafe Fire, Chun-Li's fate is sealed. But if not, this could be a decent handful of things, actually. Chun-Li has the move don't move mix up, meaning she could be playing dive or spinning bird kick, or she could be playing I believe it's called Kikoken, which is her projectile 3 to 5 with 4 guard that does not force her to move.
What's the call on stun immunity there, do you think?
I don't think she cares about the stun immunity. I think she wants the hit effect to add it to her gauge. Like when you're at 2 life, stun immunity doesn't really do anything for you.
So just confident that whatever they're throwing here, they'll connect and try to get that gauge online.
That makes sense. At that point, that'll be 5 gauge, which is enough to throw a critical Hozenka. All right, it is the projectile, which is perfect here because that'll make that sweet whiff. Kikoken hits for 4 damage. It does not stun Renea, so Renea will still have access to her after effect if she wants to keep her boost in play. Chun-Li
Oh, I don't know that.
chooses to step forward.
That. Gee,
That's clearly a misplay, but that is a perfectly legal decision.
that's. Did I mess my timing up? Did Renea initiate that?
No, Chun-Li initiated. So she went first. She hit for 4, and then she.
I don't think that. I don't think she understood that she could use that movement to back into the corner.
I understand, but the game state was not violated, so
Yep.
that is a perfectly legal decision. Yep. So the after effect on Kikoken says lose all armor, then move 1. A move means advance or retreat. So if your back is to the wall, you can choose to retreat. In this case, Chun-Li threw herself into the sweep and impaled herself, basically. As I said, I think this is clearly a misplay, but it is perfectly legal, so we shouldn't do a thing about it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that is Renea. So Renea won, so she's dead. That leaves 5 other characters. Both players can switch, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Both players switch.
Yes. So yeah, they choose whoever they want, except that Renea is dead for the rest of the set. That's not what I said, Jay. I said move is shorthand for advance or retreat, not the other way around.
All right, so we've got Renea taking game 1 of the set. So now that Renee is down, Zeus is going to be looking at either Geoffrey or Guile. Which of those 2 do you prefer into this 3-fighter lineup that StormCloud has to choose from?
Geoffrey. So Geoffrey or Geoffrey, who the heck knows, has a transformation that lets him negate opponent boosts. Chun-Li is a very boost-centric character. So that matchup alone is a good reason to run Geoffrey. Or Geoffrey. I don't know.
Whichever, right?
Yes.
You know, on the flip side of that, if you're StormCloud, are you looking to bring Cammy, Chun-Li, or Remiliss into the 2-man team of Geoffrey and Guile? What do you feel most confident in there?
Well, I would have run Remiliss because I'm me. I have no idea what StormCloud's experience with his team is like. I am much more experienced with Remiliss than with Cammy. My Cammy play is pretty mediocre. I tend to play really unsafe things because I think they're hilarious, and then I get squished.
Jay pointing out, Cammy has a 100% win rate so far. She must be the strongest in the tournament.
Yes, that's how statistics work. They
Yes.
prove reality.
Yes, indeed. And Cammy rocking that 100% win rate over 2 games. Very strong statistical sampling there. Thanks, Jay.
Yes. Yes. Evidence that she's the best character in Exceed. Oh dear.
We seem to have lost one of our players.
StormCloud has disconnected. That's not good. Well, we may need a minute here. Well, on your side, who would you feel comfortable running into the Geoffrey Guile lineup?
Well, much like you, of these three fighters, I would definitely be taking Remiliss. For me, Remiliss is a comfort pick, and I can't speak to who StormCloud's comfort picks or anchors are, but whenever I personally have a match go that lopsided, I tend to like to just lean into one of my comfort picks and not think too hard about what the potential matchups are. Just play something that I feel good about and that I've got a lot of practice with, so that I can kind of decompress and hopefully, you know, reset the scale just a little bit. And for me, of these three, that would be Remiliss. I think into these into Geoffrey and Guile. Maybe less so Guile, but Geoffrey, I would feel okay taking Remiliss into. I definitely need some more practice in that matchup to see if that's something that I can leverage Remiliss's strengths. But yeah, I think that would be me.
That seems fair. Oh, I see that you scratched Renea off the list.
Yep, I'll try to keep that updated for you so that you, speaking to the viewers here, that you guys are aware of who they have left to choose from. Just a quick moment to shout out, as I do every cast, everybody. Let's thank Taxi for organizing this fantastic tournament for us. Huge turnout. Lots of great games are happening. Lots of great footage is being captured. That's gonna, hopefully help to get this game that we all love out to even more people and expand visibility a little bit, as well as Level 99 for sponsoring the tournament and for making sure that this game that we all love gets out to board game stores and gets into our hands. And thanks to you, D, for coming and commentating with me and spending this time so that we can tap into your brain a little bit and get some of this really excellent analysis of these fights.
Hey, my pleasure. It's an excuse to watch more Exceed and then to talk more Exceed. These are some of my favorite things as it happens.
We have an
All right,
update from our player. Looks like the lost internet connection, trying to get reset. We're going to delay just a few minutes while they get back set up and into the room. In chat, if any of you guys have any questions you'd like to ask about the characters here or anything really, please take this time. It's been hype, Taxi says. Indeed, it has. It's a really cool thing to get to be a part of. I feel pretty good about it. Real Zac Efron. Binding of Isaac, right? Pretty sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that emoji.
I have no idea what
Am
it means.
I using the word right?
Emoji.
Probably that's what that is. I don't know. Whatever the Twitch equivalent of tiny little picture that's meant to tell me something is.
Yeah.
Oh man, D. Let's get off topic for a second while we wait on our players. Have you seen? This is going to be an advertisement for all you people out there. You're welcome. Skull. I think it's called The Slayer of Heroes on Steam.
Oh, it looks like StormCloud's back in the room. No, I haven't. I have no. I've seen some people with their avatars from it popping up recently, but I'm not familiar with the game.
Looks like a really fun sort of platforming roguelike. It might actually be something that you would enjoy. I'd recommend you check it out. Watch some footage today, and it looked pretty great. Okay, actually, D dodging my my talk about Skull here is very convenient because the players have selected fighters, and it looks like they're ready to go. We're going to drop...
Quite. Oh! We're actually still waiting on StormCloud to load in.
Mistake?
No, I was just kidding.
Looks like they have selected fighters, just dealing with a few connection issues.
Okay, I think he's finally connected. Here we go. All right. So
So
it
we're gonna see
is
Guile
Remiliss
into Remiliss after all.
versus Guile. So it is the Remiliss that we both would have chosen ourselves. This will be fun. We're both Remiliss players. We get to watch this Remiliss play. Probably be unlike either of us since everybody's different.
For sure. That's that's one of the coolest things about this game, right? I was just speaking with a friend of mine recently, sort of evangelizing a bit and trying to get some more of my friends into the game.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, trying to get this, trying to get Remiliss moved over where she can be seen a little bit better, but unfortunately my overlay is not cooperating with me. So we'll just abbreviate to Remy, which, in case you haven't heard it before, is what a lot of us around the Discord community refer to her as for shorthand.
I mean,
Turn that off.
all right. So loser of the previous game decides who goes first in this game. That means Remy is chosen. Looks like she's chosen to go first. We have StormCloud as Remiliss versus Zeus as Guile. I'm very curious about one thing in particular. Oh, that's turn 1 prep. That was fast. Nobody even mulligans. Wow.
Miyu Kitsune says, I bought Season 2 Set 3 to play this with my son. He didn't bother. My friends aren't into it like I am, so finding this community is a godsend. Absolutely.
Nice.
That is something that I think rings true for all of us.
Mm-hmm. It is great to find a place to play these games. The Discord and the Tabletop Simulator community are fantastic places to look for folks. I'm not sure which set 3 is, actually. I'm curious which characters are in that box because I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I know Church versus Empire, Guardians versus Myths, Hunters versus Demons, and I believe it's Magic versus Monsters. I'm not sure they're called verses, actually. They might just be Church and Empire, Magic and Monsters, etc.
Yeah, your guess is going to be as good as mine on that front.
Yeah. So Guile boost for +2 speed at the end of his next turn adds to his gauge. I'm really curious about one thing in particular, which is whether or not we're going to see a big hand Guile.
As we discussed a little bit before the set started, D had the Guile versus the World series, where we put this guy through his paces, particularly that line of play.
Mm-hmm. Remiliss boost for speed needs to drop her in a turn.
Looks like they're burning on through that. For those of you watching, bear in mind, we are in a tournament setting, and so, you know, especially for these players which have asked us on to cast, that still adds a little bit of extra pressure onto a situation that is already, you know, fairly stressful. And as a result, sometimes even players that know better and have done this 100 times make mistakes. So especially for newer players, we would expect, you know, to see some of those as well. So a little bit of forbearance, and we'll try to catch them as the mistakes are made and make sure that the game state, you know, mandatory game state anyways, is observed.
Mm-hmm. Just trying to be helpful. No judgment here at all. It is a very stressful situation, even with friendly players, because it's tournament.
Yeah, there's a certain mentality, right? There's a certain mind state that you slip into, or at least me. I guess I can't speak for everyone. It doesn't matter how confident I feel, how many hours I practiced, how many, you know, lab sessions I sat down and just crunched through numbers. I still, when I sit down for the first game, am gonna have a bad case of the jitters. It's just how it is.
All right, let's see. So Guile chose to run into range 2, which is his favorite range. However, because the Viz military discipline leaves play at the end of his turn, or the turn after he plays it, it is gone now, leaving Remiliss with the advantage on her turn of that +2 speed was still in play, and she is setting a natural EX attack. Oh man, this could be a lot of things, but probably the most frightening thing would be Toxic Tendrils.
If this is the Toxic Tendrils, this feels fantastic for the Remy player.
Mm-hmm. There is no way for Guile to counter that. All he can do against it is block. Oh, it's the spike, which would hard punish the block, and it is the block.
Oh my goodness.
Oof, that'll do 6 damage clean.
Well done.
All right, calling out that mix-up threat. So Guile's getting straight up stuns.
So here's the real question: do you feel better about landing that spike juke, or would you have felt better about toxic tendrils?
Honestly, if I had the tendrils, I would have taken it. Um, but this is really funny,
Yeah,
so I'm not going to discount the value. Wait, what?
maybe a little bit of confusion.
Making sure he's aware.
Okay. For those that aren't aware, or that haven't seen a whole lot of Remy play yet, Toxic Tendrils comes with the boost, or excuse me, a Transform Radiation. This is, by and large, the most powerful single item in Remy's kit. Being able to grant 0 to 1 range to any EX attack in a kit that has somebody that can make most attacks EX fairly cheaply is really strong, and it lets you break a lot of rules that just don't get broken elsewhere. So it's something that you'll see a lot of Remiliss players prioritize. And generally speaking, the more work that you can do to delay Toxic Tendrils coming online, the better game you're going to have into Remy.
Mm-hmm. Opponent asking something, which I think someone actually asked earlier, either in this channel or possibly in the Discord, which is whether or not they could spin for armor on block. The answer is yes. You can spin for armor on block here. It won't do anything because spike ignores armor.
Seeing a second military discipline.
Yep, giving Guile that speed boost. Once again, threatening to build gauge for free if Remiliss lets the turn pass. That said, he basically traded 6 life for that 1 gauge. Not sure that was worth it.
Yeah. How do you feel about using military discipline and closing in here into Remy, who doesn't have too terribly many long range options? Would you have saved that sonic boom to kind of get to range and harass, or?
That's a good question. I actually think it would have been good to save 1 copy, because at some point you might need to play across and find yourself at range 5 or greater, and that's when it's really useful to have access to sonic boom. It's basically just the follow-up for if you have to play across.
We see it get teched.
Has clarified magic versus monsters. Eugenia, Galdred, Emina, and Remiliss. Very nice. Remiliss is one of my favorite characters, if I haven't made that incredibly obvious. So, naturally, I approve of your box selection.
There is a cast full of Remiliss lovers. You will probably notice by my fight card that I'm also a large fan.
Mm-hmm. Actually, you said there were 11 Remiliss picks, so she is very popular in the tournament.
Yeah, she is well above average. Now, I'd have to go and, like I said, crunch the numbers. I am making the assumption that 6 is about average based on what I've seen, but I haven't done the math yet.
Sense. Assuming every character was picked with equal... no, actually, not even assuming. I think 6 has to be the average, right? Because we have 270 selections across... yeah, it's 45 playable or legal characters.
I'm not even going to attempt that math because this is recorded and somebody will make fun of me about it later.
Oh, I probably got it wrong. Oh, that is a critical spinning back knuckle. All right, so the good news is it's blocked. The bad news is that's going to cost a lot of force. So this is 8 power.
For anyone just tuning in that is unfamiliar, critical is a seasoned mechanic from Street Fighter. This is something that when the attack is set, the fighter that is setting the attack can spend 1 gauge in order to enable all critical effects on their attacks. This is critical attack effects printed on the attack itself, any critical effects that might be part of their UA. 1 gauge enables all of them.
Mm-hmm. The ability to critical and to have attacks that have different properties between critical allows for attacks to kind of become deeper because they can take different shapes. So like normally, spinning back knuckle is 1, 2, 5, 4. This is just a 5 power attack. When EX hits 6 power at speed 5, this is a big, heavy mid-speed chunk, but it doesn't hit any magical breakpoints. When it has critical, that power will go up to 7 or 8 if EX, which means it will stun sweep or focus respectively, becoming a spike-alike in its own right. So this is actually 2 different attack shapes based on whether or not you spin a gauge. Alright, so Guile discarded nuclear option at random. Remiliss is now spinning force for that extra armor, so she spent 1 force. She's at 4 armor right now. Still
Hitting
getting stuns.
hitting nuclear option feels pretty bad.
Yeah, especially since Remiliss telegraphed that she wanted to spend it as force for the armor, but then confirmed that the hit effect on Guile's attack will happen before the expenditure, so he managed to knock it out of her hand first. Alright, she ended up spending 2 force to take 2 damage. Um, that was pretty costly. Blocking there was still probably one of the best things that she could have done in all likelihood.
Yeah,
And
I
it
agree.
is her turn next. It also moves
I
Guile to range 1, which is much better for her than him.
I do very much hate to lose. Uh, why did I just space on it? Nuclear launch.
Nuclear option? Nuclear
Nuclear
option.
option.
Mm-hmm.
I
We
just
can use it.
combined the attack name and the boost because why not?
Yeah, initiate launch, nuclear option, initiate option, nuclear launch.
Um,
Um, Guile using his character ability. That I think confirms that this is not a big hand Guile. Um, uh, he has missed his end of turn draw. There it is. So he's using his ability on front side, and if you're going to run the big hand Guile line, you will conserve your gauge until you have exceeded. Meanwhile, Remiliss still building up her hand. She's at range 1. This is a very dangerous place to stand against Remiliss because, especially with the threat of ground 0, the very same card whose art is pictured on your splash screen.
wonderful card.
Mm-hmm.
I hope
Yep.
that sometime in this tournament we can capture footage of somebody getting to land an EX ground 0 while exceeded for you.
Yep. Yelled with ground 0 will do about 14 damage if you don't move. That is a lot of damage, as they say.
I'm gonna put that on my bucket list. That is, Taxi, make it happen. I don't know how you're gonna do it, but I need to see one of those this tournament. Just throw a bunch of Remiliss players at each other until it does.
I mean, there's 11 Rimlisses in the tournament, right? So it very well could happen. Don't know if it'll be recorded, though. Just depends who plays it. All right. It is Guile's turn. Let's see. Standing at range 1 is a little bit unnerving. He's probably going to boost some stats just to improve his chances against a close range EX attack from Remiliss. Yep. So that'll give him 1 armor, 3 guard. And as with most of his special boosts, it'll go to his gauge at the end of his next turn if he doesn't strike. This rewards Guile for playing defensively. So Guile's intended play pattern is along this line, where he's going to play defensively, let his opponent initiate into him, while he has a boost in play, giving him a better chance of winning that strike. Then, after he's expended his resources, he uses the gauge he's built up to reload.
See Remy striking.
Does she spend force? That's the big question.
So if you're this Guile, would you have gone for the boost at 1 or would you have stepped back?
I would have taken this boost if I had it. Like, I don't have much of a life lead. Oh, yep, we have a 3 force EX attack.
See Remiliss's unique ability coming into play here. Spend 3 force whenever you set your attack. If you do, it is considered EX. Incredibly powerful ability.
Yep. EX stacks have +1 power, +1 speed, +1 armor, and +1 guard. Alright, here defends with 1 card. This is probably the focus or the sweep. Yep, there it is. So speed 8 grasp will not stun. It'll only deal 3 damage as well, thanks to that boost. She will move Guile 1 or 2 spaces. She can move him either direction, but she must move him. She moves him to out range 3.
What's your preference there? Do you go for pushing him out into midfield or do you corner him?
Personally, I would have dragged him into the corner, keeping him at range 1. Cornering is powerful, as in most fighting games, because it is difficult to escape the corner. Once you get stuck there, you have to find a way to get past the opponent. And most characters are not built to do so easily.
Yep.
So I wasn't tracking. I hope Guile took his 3. I can certainly see that Remiliss took too much, actually.
Maybe forgetting the armor? For those that don't know or might be new, the reason that D was saying that it's difficult to get out of the corner once you're placed in it, one of the basic actions in Exceed is to move. You spend a number of force, and then you move that number of spaces. Well, if you would cross over a character, because you cannot move into a character's spot, you actually have to pay an additional force. So it sort of taxes you for trying to move past someone. One of the ways
Hmm.
that you can bypass this is the boost run on cross, because it just says advance 3. So anytime something tells you to
Up to three.
advance, up to 3, excuse me. Anytime something tells you to advance, it doesn't. It's not part of that standard move action, so you're not paying that tax.
Hmm. Right. Only the move action inflicts the tax. All right. So Guile boosts Fierce. Once again, that same play pattern of being ready to play something defensive and trade up using his boosts. Remiliss strikes. Now, Remiliss, of course, is a 7th cross character. 7th cross characters tend to be bad at boosting because their kit has to make room for transformations. This means Street Fighter characters tend to be stronger in set play and in neutral, but 7th cross characters are stronger in the late game. So we have one card, and it does not appear to be EX. What's your call on the Remiliss play here?
I'm not certain. I don't know that I would have taken this strike with the board as is. I
Uh
probably
oh.
would be looking to fill up on some resources.
Ooh,
Ooh, that feels good though.
misread by Guile. Looks like he was calling the spike or the sweep. He played a defensive EX spike, which would have done 8 damage, and instead he'll end up taking 2 because the caustic vent ducks in under him and pokes him.
Yep. And the Remy player, thinking somewhat along the same lines as me, she's just choosing to use the hit effect on Caustic Vent to get some cards in hand and filter, rather than taking a prepare action or boosting one of my. I shouldn't use this card as much as I do, but I love playing Engineered Destruction.
Oh, for sure. It's a good boost. Let's see. She has to discard a card for a hit of X, though. There it is.
Okay, so we've seen Assault go down.
Kind of funny, considering she just played an Assault like. So Caustic Vent is a speed 5 card that hits at range 1 and has before close 2, meaning it has the same basic attack structure as Assault. It also does only 3 damage. It's a little bit less than Assault, but that does mean that it does not exceed the breakpoint of 4 by itself. 155 before close 2 is a notably better Assault, a stronger card shape. Any higher than that, and you just have a different card going on. It replaces the hit gain advantage of Assault, which would allow you to take the next turn, with a different effect of hit draw 2 and discard 1. So it's side grade Assault. Guile prepares.
Yeah, at this point, if just the way that I play here, I'm definitely looking to get some more resources in hand.
Mm-hmm. It looks like she's boosting Aftershock, returning Grasp. That'll also return any grasps in her discard pile to her hand, if she has any. I have not been keeping track of the grasps, I'll be honest.
Yep, I can't recall. Looks like
No, we'll
only
find out
these.
in a moment. There it is. All right. So that gives her access to EX Grasp in hand. She draws for a turn, passes Guile.
We see 10 cards in both players' discards, 13 in Guile's deck, 14 in Remiliss's.
Mm-hmm. So Guile can play a reading here since he knows that she has both Grasp in hand. If he does, though, he has to beat EX Grasp, which is non-trivial. Only ways to beat it are to trade with it with to beat it with his own EX Grasp, which we know he cannot play, or to trade with it with Sweep or Focus. And obviously, if you're playing Reading, that's another Focus gone. All right, he is retreating to range. This makes sense. It means that Grasp is not a threat.
Yep, I feel pretty good about that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in general, retreating from Remiliss is a good idea.
Yeah,
If she chooses to close in, though.
that is the last thing you want to do, is let Remy catch you with a ground zero. If she's been monitoring your resources and what you have available, that attack can be incredibly punishing.
Yep. She preps. So Remiliss is in a fairly comfortable position as the heavyweight, as a heavyweight character in general, meaning someone with fairly low mobility with huge backbreaking attacks of typically fairly low or mid speed. She wants to hug the center. She is less mobile than other characters. She's less evasive. So in order to prevent them from being able to flee out of her range, she wants to hug the center three spaces of the board. She's doing a good job of that here.
Yep.
Guile puts on the shades.
There we go. Shades
All
of
right.
Glory is a fairly unique boost shape. It has a cleanup effect that says if you were not stunned, you may sustain this boost. Just to note that normally boosts are discarded immediately following the cleanup step. So by having this printed, it gets to stay in play until you get stunned.
Mm-hmm. So just don't get stunned. Easy.
Yeah, right?
All right. Remiliss boosts for speed, telegraphing an irradiate or a toxic tendrils.
Yep, and I think either one of those at this point. Remy in a good spot, but I don't typically
Ooh.
like to get to this point in the game without any of my transformations online.
Mm-hmm. This is a very good boost, very threatening for Guile. So he's going to play a +0 to 1 range. Like all of his special boosts, well, most of his special boosts, it goes to his gauge at the end of his next turn if he doesn't use it. But it turns on a lot of options because range 3, he has access to, assault, sweep, spike, a lot of viable plays. If he can play a sweep here, he practically guarantees trading with whatever Remiliss throws at him.
Remy not backing down.
It is the irradiate, it is the sweep. Okay, this works out pretty much as expected.
Irradiate getting +2 power for being at range 4 is going to come in at 5. Not enough to stun the sweep out.
Oh yeah, that was not EX. Sorry, I had to sneeze. So that will hit for 5. He has how much card?
Enough.
Good answer.
Attack was not critical, so just 6.
Okay. Wait, critical doesn't matter here, does it?
Oh, my bad. I'm completely misreading Shades of Glory. I apologize.
Okay. So 8 card actually, and if it mattered, it would be critical, but it doesn't matter. So he's a critical sweep, which is the same as regular sweep. He's going to hit her back for 6 and burn a card out of the hand, which is actually a big deal. So one of Remiliss's main weaknesses is that she's vulnerable to disruption. Disruption referring to effects that
Maybe
reduce her consistency.
forgetting the forced discard here. There we go. Launch sequence being the transform on irradiate. This is one of the 2 key transforms with, as we mentioned earlier, the transform on Toxic Tendrils being the most important transform. This one comes in second. When you reveal your attack, if a copy of your attack is in your gauge or transformation area, it is considered an EX attack. Now, this is important because Remiliss's prime method of EXing her attacks is by spending 3 force, but if she wants to exceed, she loses that ability. Once she flips, though, in order to activate the benefit of her flip side, she still needs to EX attacks. So having this transform in play is one of the ways that she can enable herself to do that a little bit more easily.
Excuse me, I'm going to go clarify rules question.
Okay. Note that even if the Remiliss player doesn't exceed, that is still a very valuable transformation. It lets you... it lets you... I don't want to say bluff an EX attack, but when you set a single card and you don't spend 3 force on it, your opponent now has to take into consideration that with that transform in play, it could be an EX copy of anything sitting in your gauge or transformation area, as well as any single copy card that you might play, which, leads to some fairly interesting mix-up situations and lets you obfuscate your information just a little bit more to, sneak in the last bits of damage you need, or maybe enable connection for one of your attacks that you want to transform.
Okay. Looks like he has transformed irradiates, and the random discard hit toxic tendrils. That's unfortunate.
Yep, that feels bad. There's the exceed.
Oh boy. Alright, well, he doesn't have any gauge yet, so he can't use his character ability, but once he does gain it, he is primed to start using it to deadly effect. With Shades in play in particular, Big Hand Guile is nothing to be trifled with.
Tell us a little bit about the Big Hand Guile loop, D. How do you enable this? What is the effect that lets you use this line of play?
Well, fundamentally, you need to be in exceed mode with at least 1 gauge. Then you use your character ability to spin the gauge, to change cards, and then strike. The reason that this is called Big Hand Guile is because if you do this when you already have, 5 to 7 cards in hand, excuse me, it will cause you to draw at least 3 cards, because the gauge is worth 3 cards by itself, and then if you spend more, then that's more. Putting you over your hand size, your maximum hand size, right, of 7. However, because you're striking, your hand size is not checked. So you'll retain whatever excess you had. And then if you land that hit, it'll go to your gauge. So your next turn, you spin that gauge, you draw 3 cards, you strike. If you land the hit, next turn, you spin a gauge, you draw 3 cards, you strike. So you're going up at least 2 cards every turn. So your hand size just keeps growing.
Which is really interesting because normally, if you're taking the aggressive line of play, part of the cost of that, without other abilities coming into effect, is that you're losing resources, right? You're running out of gas, so to speak.
Right. The more aggressive you are, the faster you run out of cards. Something that I say to new players all the time, because when you're striking, you don't draw at the end of your turn. But the big hand Guile line allows him to draw at the beginning of his turn, basically, and still strike. Moving into his favorite range.
This has been a great fight. This is very close. Like we said earlier, it's a shame that it took Remy as long as it did to get any of her transformations online, but she's got one in play at this point. She's got a healthy hand size. Life totals are pretty even. I think Guile is winning the momentum game just by a little bit, by virtue of having his Exceed mode online, especially once he gets that gauge that he's needing to turn on the line of play that you were discussing. But anyone's game.
Yep. Remiliss notably has a life lead. It's only 2 life, but that's still a huge deal because she is fairly tanky. It is just really, really hard to come back from a life deficit against her in the mid to late game. She really just needs one more transformation in play, and then she'll be set up pretty well.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't even matter that much which one. So Cross is going to poke for, at most 1 damage, depending on if Guile decides to spend extra force, and then retreat 3. This telegraphs that she has Radiate up because we know that both of Guile's Sonic Booms are down.
Bear in mind the transformation that we were discussing a little bit ago. If Remiliss throws an Irradiate as an attack, because of the copy of Irradiate that has been transformed, that Irradiate will be EX without any additional expenditure of force.
Yes. And Guile will essentially not be able to react to it because I believe he spent both crosses. So he will take 6 damage, or if he assaults into it, he will take only 4. Or he could take a move action right now.
Yep.
There you go.
That seems
Back
like
to
a
his favorite
safe
range.
move.
Makes sense. If Remiliss strikes here, I'll bet you anything it's with Toxic Tendrils. That would jump over him, give her the center of the arena. And also, because he has a little extra guard, he might feel more comfortable using slow attacks.
Let's take a peek at Guile's discard here. So we see that we have 1 copy, 2 copies of Cross Down, so that's 1 fast attack that would poke out Tendrils. We see 1 copy of Assault down. So there is 1 Assault floating in the deck somewhere that...
We have attack. She will kick the shades off his head.
Interesting. So not wanting him to get the free critical and the bonus guard here.
That makes sense. Honestly, it's a pretty standard tech target. If you aren't using tech to compete with the speed boosts, then knocking the shades off is a great use for tech. Dive is not very valuable against Guile. He will typically come in at the same or higher speed. So as an attack, Dive is not all that important in the matchup. That means tech is of good value.
Interesting. So we're seeing the read.
Yep, we have a reading. He has set his attack first, which is correct.
Oh.
Success. Oh, a punishing success, although it was not critical, so it's only going to do 5 damage, and it will not discard 2 cards at random.
You feel pretty good if you're Remy for having tech shades before he pulled that move.
Yes. If only he had spent the gauge, but he probably just didn't feel safe spinning the gauge, considering he didn't know if the reading would land ahead of time. And so I'm gesturing at that gauge. He has now attained a life lead, and he has 2 cards, meaning he is ready to do a change cards and strike, or just change cards, actually. He would only draw... Well, he would draw a grand total of 4 if he changed cards and then ended his turn, spinning 1 card from gauge. That would push almost to the edge of his reshuffle.
Yep, Guile is sitting on a 7-card deck, so needs to be careful when he chooses to do the change cards action, depending on when it is, that he doesn't give away too much information.
That's true. It can make you very vulnerable to reading. That is one of the problems with Big Hand Guile. Since he doesn't have a very efficient way of getting rid of cards, he is unusually vulnerable to reading. Looks like Remiliss is striking with 1 card. Okay, so my call was tendrils. That was my call from this position. See what happens.
I would be scared of the assault, but at the same time, I really want tendrils, so I might be willing to risk it. So
Well, you don't have to risk the assault if you spend force to EX this,
this is true.
Whoa! You don't see that every day. That was a non-EX napalm stream, and it will get punished pretty hard by the flash kick. So flash kick has hit push 2 after move 1, meaning Guile can use positioning to get out of this thing's range.
Interesting.
Napalm stream,
I wonder what the thought was there.
I'm guessing just going for a slow move, trying to bait something fast. Perhaps baiting the assault, actually, since assault would have answered tendrils. And it's also resource neutral, since it has a hit effect that lets her draw a card.
That if they choose to do this in this order, unless I'm missing something, shouldn't the napalm stream hit?
Yeah, it
So
should.
maybe they have.
I think they're figuring it out.
Okay. Wanted to make sure that I hadn't missed something with board state that made this work the way that it did.
1 moment, I will go clarify.
Okay, so I apologize if you can hear the train in the background. I live pretty close to the tracks, so it, of course, decides that it's going to interrupt at the most inopportune times. To any viewers that are just checking in, if you guys have any questions or anything you want to run by D while the cast is running, please feel free to ask. A lot of information at your fingertips. D knows quite a bit about this game and will be happy to answer any questions that you might have about this matchup or anything else. Looks like still okay. We're going to see the reveal. Well, potentially. Napalm Stream has an effect. Hit, look at the top of your deck. Then you may draw it. If you do not, +2 power and discard it. So Remiliss is going to get to decide if they would rather have this as a resource in hand or cash in for the extra 2 power. And it looks like she's going to cash in the extra 2 power with a Toxic Tendrils.
Okay, so yes, Guile did choose to advance with the after effect and was hit back by the napalm stream. Remiliss chose to discard the toxic tendrils instead of drawing it to get the 2 extra points of damage, as I'm sure you saw.
Yep, I don't think that I like this move, but maybe feeling like they need to keep the life differential fairly close.
I think discarding it is fine. I think on Guile's side, moving in was probably a mistake. Although it does give him his favored range, and hey, if you're gonna make every reading land, then sure. My goodness. So yes, he readings grasp successfully and jumps into range 1 with 4 damage. This is a great position for Guile.
Absolutely, it's not terribly frequently that you see 2 grasps read in one game successfully.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That has made a big difference, and I guess it was. Now that it worked, I can say it was worth it to walk into that napalm stream, since otherwise he would not have been in position to make use of that hand. Now, probably going to use his character ability. Yep, so that's at 4 cards right now, and then he may strike. And if he doesn't strike, he'll draw for in a turn.
So what's your play there? Would you have taken the 4, or would you have spent another force to dig a little deeper?
I'm sorry. Oh, you're talking about here, the change cards action.
Yep.
Um,
Are you happy with the 4 into the strike?
I think this is the play. No, I would 4 and then 1, unless I expect Remiliss to strike, in which case it really depends what I've got left. But that is a, yep, that's a strike. Okay, we'll see what happens.
And he rotated that gauge, so I'm thinking he's indicating that it's critical.
I think it might have just been a misclick, but we'll find out in a minute, whenever they resolve. Either way, I think my play is, yeah, I draw up some here, then I may strike. It depends. I'm not counting well enough to know what's left here. Or I draw. But then the plan is the next turn, I would ditch my entire hands and another card from Gauge to change cards into my reshuffle and then strike with a larger hands that my opponent doesn't know much about. All right, we have a response from Liz. Will she EX? She does not. No. It's Focus and Flash Kick. That will not... So if that was a critical, it kills her. So we'll find out in a second.
as they resolve this. We'll see. Okay, yep, that was critical.
Evidently. Yep. All right.
So Guile
Just enough
takes
for
it.
lethal. Is that the set, or is there another game to go?
That is the set. StormCloud took game 1, Renee into Chun-Li, and this second game, Guile into Remy.
Wait a second. Zeus was playing Guile.
Oh no. My apologies, viewers. We'll get that switched around.
So
So what I meant to say is that we're going to game 3. Let's,
wait, unless Zeus played. Oh, hold on. Who won the first game? Renea, right?
Yep.
I think Zeus played Renea. I think you just have them flipped vertically. Red was Zeus, the red player.
I think that I do have them.
What does he have to do to report? Is it challenge and also the Google Sheets?
It is, yes, it is. Challenge both. Google Sheets is for the results, and Challenge is just to make sure that the brackets get set correctly for the tournament. Viewers, I apologize for the mix-up here. There was some board state at the very beginning of the game that I apparently just lost track of who was sitting where and who was playing who. But we are going to see Zeus take this set with both Guile and Renea taking home wins. Very much appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully we'll be casting some more games tonight, actually. I think that there are a couple of more games scheduled to be cast, so we'll make sure and provide those links for you in the Discord. D, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And if I don't see you again tonight, have a great night, everybody.
Have a great night. See you all around.